All right, what's going on, guys? We are live. Welcome to Mot Crypto. If you heard me talking at the beginning, it's because I was talking to the live stream we have going on Instagram at the same time. So, yeah, guys, I think I have a pretty good show for you tonight. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff happening right now, and definitely a lot of concerns about where crypto itself is going. But before we jump into it, we're gonna give it a little time here. Let some people come on in, and then we'll jump into the topics for today. So, in the meantime, the reason why we're starting a little bit later than usual is because my mom and sister and my niece they're visiting from Michigan, so we had dinner together, and I just knew I wasn't going to be able to start right at 8:45 like I usually do. So that's why I am a little late. And yeah, it's been a busy week here for MOT because we've been just adding more and more stuff to what we do. And I think it's going to really pay off in the long run, especially if we just stay consistent and keep producing good quality content that people can utilize and try to provide practical knowledge and what to do, or just practical advice, because we talk about a lot of stuff here, and when it comes to the politics, the crypto, the interviews I do, I want to make sure there are practical things people can utilize in their life, and that's kind of my goal. Maybe I don't achieve that every time, but that's what I aim to do. Now with the MOT Sports, that is it's in a different category, and it has its own purpose, So, but what we do here with crypto, I want to make sure that I'm providing a perspective that maybe you haven't thought of, maybe you haven't heard of, um, and maybe that perspective is good or bad. That's for you to decide. But I think it's different than what you typically hear because anybody who's been following my content for any length of time knows I'm not somebody who's a big tech supporter. I just realize that's the way of the world. That's the way it's going, and you can utilize it to your advantage. You can make things that are better. Um, if you utilize that technology, there's nothing wrong with utilizing the technology. It's how we use the tech. It's the intention behind it, and so I try to incorporate my my view of how I just give my opinions and what I think is to be true, what I know to be true as well. Try to just give that out here in the crypto community, um, because we're all in this to make, for one, life changing money. There's no secret about it, right? That's everybody's purpose in being in crypto, is to participate in the mad gains that we know are real. We know they're real because we've seen numerous people achieve levels of wealth they would not otherwise achieve had it not been for crypto. And it is hard to really think that you can achieve that. And when and if you do achieve that, it can become detrimental to your mental health, to your physical health as a result of your mental health, not doing as well because you don't know how to manage the kind of money you have at that time if you do really well in crypto, right? And so this is something Matty All In talks about on his YouTube channel, and he's a Hexagon. He talks about sudden wealth syndrome. He covers it very well and describes some things one can do to handle sudden wealth syndrome. Because a lot of people in the hex community over the last 2.5 years have experienced just that. And so it's a very real thing. And with that comes more responsibility because you have more resources at your disposal when you have a larger bank account. And so not only will you be sort of obligated to help the ones you love around you, but you will feel obligated to eventually branch out and help in other parts of the world and other ways. And I think this is where we begin to see some concerns about regulations. Um, because when you try to start a business, you have to follow these certain laws and regulations within your state. And if you want to create a building for your business, or buy a building specifically for your business, you have the right zoning, etc. And with crypto, there's very little regulation, very little. But that segues perfectly into where I want to start the show with, and that is the new units that were created by both the FBI and the Department of Justice. So let's start off here. Let's take a trip over to this article from Decrypt. It says the new unit will focus on cryptocurrency and related matters while the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team finds its leader. Okay, so right here, the United States FBI has established a virtual asset exploitation unit to focus on cryptocurrency related cases. Also, the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team has named its first director, Young Shio. I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name. But anyway, the FBI has launched this today. I believe this was today. What was the date on this? I'm sorry, yesterday. So this is one day old. And it was revealed at the same time. The news was revealed as a part of an announcement. Yep. So it was at the same time that they announced the head of this new department to oversee cryptocurrency crimes potentially. Now, this woman here, the one who is going to be leading this, she was if I'm not mistaken, a lead prosecutor for the case on the guy who made the Silk Road. If you recall, years ago, the Silk Road was the first place people really used to transact Bitcoin for illegal substances or legal substances. I know a few people who participated, in the Silk Road, with Bitcoin. That's why they got into Bitcoin so early, right? That doesn't mean they held it or have any now, but this used to be a real thing that real people did. And he created that. He's now in prison for, I think, life. And there's actually a DAO that's been created to try and free him. I think it's called Free Ross DAO. Anyway, I digress. She, the leader of this new task force for the Department of Justice, was one of the lead persecutors on that case to imprison him. And that may bring fear to some of your hearts. That may bring concern and worry because of the overreach governments typically have when they get involved in products such as this that were intended to eliminate middlemen and intended to liberate people from the bondage of the state's laws and regulations. But in reality, you really can't do away with it because you'll just form new governments. That's just nature. Hierarchies naturally form. And to think that you would be able to avoid any regulation, any oversight, is naive in my belief. And so the reason for these task groups is so that way they can analyze and track any kind of criminal activity and future threats to individuals. And this is just essentially going to be a sort of evolution to the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, where they will be able to, I don't know what they'll be able to do. So this is all speculation, but I'm assuming a lot of these task force will help prevent rug pulls from happening, which who can say that's a bad thing? right? To help prevent people from getting all their money stolen and lost, right? To thieves, to criminals. I mean, if people do that on the stock market, they'll get screwed. I mean, look at your Jordan Belfords, right? They face harsh penalties for doing, for basically scamming people out of their money. And there's nothing like that in crypto at the moment. And so this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I understand how some are concerned about the potential of it becoming tyrannical. And obviously, we see what's taking place in Canada, which I have some information I would like to share with you guys in a little bit. But we see what's happening in Canada, and that has sparked a fuel and sparked a flame under the asses of a lot of people in the crypto space to try and get the word out about cryptocurrencies and how they can allow you to circumvent these draconian measures that are being enacted at the moment, right? However, there is a positive side to this, and we don't talk about the positive side to the regulations that come about in these new industries. It helps them grow, actually. As I've been trying to, uh, you know, uh, describe to people, or explain to people rather, when you are a creative person or you're just creative, right? Like, you need to have some framework to do well. You do. You need some sort of framework, and everybody does. Like, if you try to live your life with no framework, and by framework I mean, what is your goal? What are you going to do? What is your purpose, etc., etc., right? Like, you don't need to know it to a T, but you need to have, like, okay, so you go to work to make money to pay your bills. So that's a set of framework, right? So it doesn't need to be anything extreme, but it can be. It can be something more elaborate than just the example I provided. Regardless, you must have a framework in order to operate within. Naturally, these systems are already being created, and that could lead one to say, why do you need government intervention then to do something that's already naturally occurring? Because that which is naturally occurring will become the government. Don't you understand that? Like, and so the current system is already structured to pivot and, you know assume the responsibility to regulate. So that just makes the most sense that they would, as opposed to trying to start, like, why reinvent the wheel, right? Why reinvent the wheel? When I was at the farm, I believe it was yesterday, I spoke with the owner of the farm, generational farm, by the way. The guy is in his 70s and works harder than most people I know, and is still sharp as a tack, has not lost any of his mental capability, it appears. Although I haven't known him for years, I've only known him for a couple of months, really, maybe 3 months. Anyway, when he was giving me advice on what I need to do in order to prepare to have my own farm and own homestead, etc., the biggest thing that he emphasized to me was, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Do what's been tried and true. And even if you don't have the financial means, like, let's assume you don't have the financial means, why not find a farm that you can live on and work on? So his whole point was, don't reinvent the wheel. And that's the point I'm making here. Like, you're not going to reinvent the wheel with these regulations. Cryptocurrency wasn't really going to change things that much. I mean, it is, in a way. I mean, it is changing things quite a bit, but it's not going to alleviate you from the government at all. It's not. You're going to still deal with them, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. The government is there to protect in a lot of ways. And a lot of people seem to forget that, especially with what's taking place in Canada, because they are so afraid of tyranny. But the biggest reason they're afraid of tyranny is because they themselves have tyrants inside of them that they have not stopped, they have not squashed. And so this fear of what's going to happen in a communist takeover and dictatorships coming to the West, it might actually be a good thing. It might actually bring more morale, more. It might actually increase the morals of society. Um, anyway, I'm not saying that I want dictatorships or anything like that. I'm just saying that we just look through uh, one perspective when it comes to things like this, and I don't like that because it doesn't give you a full, rich picture of what actually is. And if you look at like why these tyrants come to be, as I touched on in MOT today, it's due to the fact that their citizenry has become so dependent on the system, and they want more and more from the system, whether or not they realize it. Like the truckers in Canada, they're trying, excuse me, to coerce their government into ending the vaccine mandates, and hopefully that doesn't get me in trouble there. Geez, this whole YouTube thing is so retarded. Anyway, um, they want to coerce their government to end these mandates. So basically, they want the government to do their bidding because they don't have the balls to be like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'll choose my freedom, my sovereignty. I'll take all responsibility for that and leave my job if I have to. I'll pave my own way if I have to. They don't have enough belief in what they're doing to actually lose their jobs, to actually lose, to actually make sacrifices that matter. Instead, they want to be ripped apart from their child because they went to a raves that is disguised as a protest and is just so dumb. And now, as I predicted, they are going to be persecuted financially. I called this like 2 weeks ago that this was going to happen, and this is why you should not support it. Well, one of the many reasons you should not support it. Anyway, I keep going down this whole issue here. So while we're on the topic, I'll just share with you guys the videos that not videos, the imagery that I have for the things going on in Canada. So let's pull this up here. Gotta get on the Twitter. All right. So the first thing I want to bring up is from, I believe this is a post by Blockchain Boy, which he's a pretty big crypto influencer. He and I had a little back and forth on TikTok when I started talking about Hex on TikTok. I challenged him to a debate live about Hex and why he doesn't like it. And at that point, that's when the conversation started. Stopped rather, but the conversation had been going for a while, and then it just stopped when I challenged. Anyway, so this is what he said a follower of his sent him. It states, I work for a Canadian bank, and we were surprised today that some of our customers' bank accounts were frozen. We didn't freeze them. It was the Bank of Canada that did. Most of these accounts have had deposits from Coinbase and other major crypto called ShakePay. It's getting absolutely ridiculous. We had to shut down the branch today due to the large amounts of cash that were being withdrawn. Unfortunately, many families and single parents are, without in the middle of winter, whatever, because they donated to the trucker convoy, which is another reason why you should not support these obvious psyops, because you will pay the price. They're psyops because they bring you false hope. Don't be stupid. Wake up. January 6th, psyop. This psyop. And we should all know, like anybody who's in the truther movement should know by now what a freaking psyop is, and yet they don't. Anyway, so people are experiencing what it's like to not have access to their money, which is something, my wife and I have been preparing for a long time, actually for a few years, right? We've been preparing for moments like this for a few years because we saw what was going to happen. And now we're seeing a run on the banks in Canada out of fear, And this is all because of people falling for the psyop. That's all. You walked right into it, guys. Like, it's pretty obvious you walked right into it. And anyway, like anyway, so a lot of people, because of the emergency act that was enacted by Trudeau's administration, now people who have exchanged on centralized exchanges and donated to the trucker convoy are going to be persecuted for supporting terrorist groups. And does that mean that I believe that the truckers are terrorists? Personally, no. And there's a few reasons why. One, I don't believe there are legitimate truckers that are doing this. I believe that most of them, if not all of them, are paid for, are so low IQ that they don't even really understand what they're doing, and they're doing it because it doesn't make any sense that one would do such a thing and lose money for weeks on end, not see their families already for a longer period of time than they typically see them for, or get to see, in times in between they don't get to see them, right? So then you see these videos of the parties taking place and stuff like that, and it's like these aren't even real pro. Anyway, we won't even go into what that is, but it is a complete and utter joke to think that they're actually accomplishing anything because the mandates were already going down. And now crypto is being targeted because it was another way people thought they could donate their money. Unfortunately, so many people use these centralized exchanges, and that caused them to be exposed. But tell me, can anybody who's really into DeFi, maybe I'm wrong here, enlighten me. How can one exchange their fiat currency or cryptocurrency without using a fiat on ramp that belongs to a centralized exchange? Can you, I mean, in a substantial amount, not just $100 here, $10 here, $20 here, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. How can you do that? I don't know of a way. I know that on MetaMask, you can somewhat avoid it by using the payment system they have on there, but that's still centralized to get your money on there, if I'm not mistaken. So you would have to use it, right? And so with regulations that are going to ramp up, anticipate that there may be a day where DeFi becomes harder and harder to access, or it is simply just regulated so heavily to quote unquote protect citizens that it will eventually yield way less gains than it currently does. That'll be one of the many reasons why it does. It'll cool the market, it'll control the market, it'll prevent these. I don't know exactly what it'll do. I'm purely speculating on this, but it's going to happen. It will happen, and I'm not over here, being a doomsday, doom and gloom kind of guy. I'm very optimistic about crypto in the future, um, but I also want to be realistic, right? Realistically optimistic about what's going to happen. And in order to do that, you need to address the problems that are on hand. And I feel that a lot of people are going to be targeted for using these exchanges, which is why it's important we see a rise of, like these neobanks, right? These banks that are, somewhat detached away from the bigger system, but they're still your traditional bank, right? Because like you're going to need access to a bank to withdraw your crypto earnings. You're going to, okay? And so these groups that are being, or these units rather, these task force that are being designed right now to analyze and ensure that people aren't getting scammed or the coin is valid or whatever it is they're doing, can also do chain analysis, right? And track, like if you send crypto from your exchange to a private wallet, they can see where that went. And then you can be like, well, I'm going to go get another wallet and try to, do some of this and that and try to block it. But then you can see all the transactions, so you can follow the chain of transactions And that's one of the downfalls of blockchain and cryptocurrency, is that everything is on chain. Melania Trump, she came out with an NFT on Solana. We covered that, and she stayed. And there was, I guess, somebody who did chain analysis on the project and found that she or somebody used a similar address or the same exact address that minted the NFT and sold it for like $170,000, doing some wash trading. So there's like little things that you believe you might be able to do that would remain, give you a sense of anonymity, but will it really? Not only that, well, actually, there are, if I'm not mistaken, certain ways that you can retain your anonymity. But most people aren't going to use those ways, and I'm not even really sure how they work, to be completely honest with you, so I won't touch on it so much. But there are apparently ways that you can retain your anonymity in the crypto world. I'm just not exactly sure of all the ways one could do that. So anyway, that's what's going on there with the DOJ, FBI, and my little rant on the whole trucker thing. And I know a lot of people are probably not going to like what I had to say there, because it goes against what they believe is being helpful. When in reality, it's bringing in what you didn't want in the first place. That's exactly what it's doing. So, with that, talking about regulations, talking about all this stuff, let's cover what senators are urging the FTC to do now with the metaverse. Let's hop over there. Right here. Boom. Right here. Senators urge FTC to monitor threats to children in the metaverse. It says a group of lawmakers in Capitol Hill sent a letter to the Federal Trade Commission urging the agency responsible for consumer protection to monitor the metaverse for threats against children. A Democrat, Senator Edward Markey, and Representative Kathy Castor, and Lori Tarhan, I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name, asked the FTC to use its full authority under the Children's Online Protection and Privacy and Protection Act and Section 5 of the FTC Act to ensure children are protected in the new online universe. So what we've seen, or so they say they've seen, are serious concerns with regards to VR chat room. So there's been harassment and unsafe content. Apparently, not only that, but also signs of grooming, instances of child grooming when it comes to interacting in the space. Let's see what this has to say here. Clicking on this link. Dark side of metaverse exposed, why your kids needs to stay away from VR chat. So this goes into it a little bit more. This guy has the weirdest girlfriend in the universe. I'm not sure who the hell this dude is. Does it say? For those just watching, I mean listening, I am on the Zero Hedge's website, looking at a YouTube video. So it says VR chat is virtual. Anyway, one clip shared. Someone just says a massive problem, child exploitation. Anyway, you guys get the point, right? So there's a lot of predators in the metaverse, and they are preying on children because they are essentially unsupervised. So my question for the libertarian anarchist: how the hell do you prevent that from happening? Do you just say the parents need to govern? I mean, obviously yes, but then wouldn't that go against the whole like don't force things, right? Like, and so wouldn't it also be better if you had some sort of regulation to sort of quell anything like that or mitigate it? Maybe you won't completely do away with it, but it'll definitely hinder one's ability to participate in these kind of disgusting acts that quite honestly deserve the death penalty. Like if you're going to be grooming children, if you're going to be preying on children in the metaverse, you like you're living out fantasies that you wouldn't live out in the real world, and potentially you might transition over into the real world and do that because you've gained confidence and believe you've gained some sort of skill set and knowledge to do those things, execute those things in the real world. So yeah, that's what the senators are trying. Some senators are trying to do and encourage the FTC to regulate the metaverse. So we'll see how that works out. And they're not the only ones. You go over to Hong Kong and China; they're also talking about finding ways to regulate this new emerging market in the metaverse, which is essentially just the internet, right? Like right now, we're on the metaverse, so it's just going to be a more immersive experience, essentially, where you would enter it in virtual reality or augmented reality. And yeah, so I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. And I think that what we'll see is the regulations for the metaverse, the regulations for cryptocurrency will be the building blocks for the new centralized economy that will be structured, and it will be somewhat global like our current system is, but on a more digital level than it currently is, I believe. I think it's going to be harder and harder to, I could be wrong, but I think it's going to be harder and harder to control the physical. And it's going to be easier to control the digital, which is why there'll be this swift transition to focusing most of the attention on the internet, on the digital, and trying to regulate that. So cryptocurrencies also facilitate this, which I've talked about. If you go back and look at some of my BitChute videos that I did under Luis Acevedo, my name, you'll see that I talked about Bitcoin being a psyop years ago. You'll see that I've talked about cryptocurrencies being a psyop years ago. And I still, in a way, believe that they sort of are, but I've accepted that this is going to be the future and there are going to be staples in this new system. And if I'm going to participate in society, then I need to accept the realities of the world and, if you will, participate in it. I already participate in a broken, corrupted system, and that is under the United States dollar, right? The fiat system. It's already a corrupt, perverse system, yet we all participate in it. Crypto will become that. If you don't think it will, you're naive. You're naive. Things decay over time, metaphysically and physically. Like societies, right? Societies decay first metaphysically, then physically, right? Like their morals, their values, their belief systems, etc., begin to decay and weaken over time. As a result, their societies begin to crumble. And so the same is going to be true for crypto. You see that at a micro level when you look at crypto communities, pre-virality, post-virality. Usually before things begin to pop off, the communities are strong, solid, intelligent, and amicable, right? Friendly with one another. And then as they grow, there's more infighting, more hatred, more um, just trolls and things of that nature. For instance, I believe you see that in Hex. That's not to say that Hex isn't pre-viral, but you see a lot of clout chasing and um, clout chasing and infighting, and people not being able to say what they think in regards to Hex who own Hex. Like there are people who may make a bearish statement about Hex, and then everybody who is quote unquote hexicans, not everybody, it's an exaggeration, obviously, but there's a lot of quote unquote hexicans that'll be like, oh, you don't believe, you don't da da da, and it's just dumb to me. It just starts unnecessary drama, and to think that we will not experience the level of corruption and insanity that we see right now with imaginary money And you don't think that as the world becomes even more imaginary, that things are going to eventually decay. And maybe they're already decaying faster. Maybe it'll happen faster. But I don't know. We'll see, right? Like this is just me speculating here off of the news. But yeah, so that's a lot of what's going on with the regulations and things like that. So I want to jump into. I'll do a quick little coverage of the whole Ethereum thing. So Ethereum, the gas prices for a long time, I'm sure a lot of you know this, were skyrocketing, right? Just through the roof, making $100 transaction cost you like $500. It was just ridiculous. Now it's gone down to where it's more reasonable, $10, $15, sometimes less than $10 to do these transactions. Swaps are still probably kind of expensive, although I'm not too sure. I haven't done swaps in a while. But anyway, so the gas prices are going down, and that's because the NFT space is in a bear market, and so less people are using or buying NFTs. NFTs consume a lot of gas and congest the network, and decentralized exchanges do the same thing as well. I think decentralized exchanges are number one, and NFTs are number two, or it's the other way around. And the decrease of NFT sales, you see an increase. A decrease as well in gas prices. So that's pretty cool. But there's something that's coming right around the corner. Right around the corner, guys. It's called Pulsechain. And you may want to ask Richard Hart, when Pulsechain, sir? When is Pulsechain? And you'll be told 2 months for the next 10 years. 2 months away. 2 months away. Obviously, I'm joking. Not about the whole 2 months thing. That's happened several times, but he's very upfront about. He doesn't know because software is so unpredictable. Not so unpredictable, but it's just very difficult to really know when you're done. And I don't know how to make software, so I wouldn't know anything about that. So anyway, Pulsechain will remedy this problem for a long time because it has faster throughput, or can handle more traffic. It's also proof of stake and deflationary, unlike Ethereum. Ethereum's not deflationary, which something most people have not been talking about is inflation bug was caught recently in Ethereum. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the fact that one could have minted as many free Ethereum as they wanted to. Fortunately, a white hat hacker found it and fixed it and was rewarded like $2 million. Anyway, so Pulsechain is taking the entire Ethereum ecosystem, putting it on a proof of stake system, and giving it faster speeds to transact and cheaper fees to transact, and you get to earn yield on your Pulse token as well. So that's super cool. I'm super bullish for Pulsechain. I was a day one OG sacrificer, and I was also a big sacrificer. Not really a big sacrificer. I can't say I was a big sacrificer in PulseX or Pulsechain, but yes, for a lot of those, I sacrificed for Pulsechain day one, sacrificed for PulseX during the time frame where you were able to get 10,000 sacrifice points for $1 for every dollar. So that was pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to those projects. Now let's go over to PulseX really quick to see the sacrifice phase where it's at. I think it's almost over, if I'm not mistaken. I think there's a few days left, and currently, we see a $1,027,300,791 has been sacrificed to PulseX. which is going to be the decentralized exchange on Pulsechain. It's going to have the most liquidity right away. And oh my gosh, this is insane. So it blew Pulsechain sacrifice phase out of the water. Richard Hart started something with the sacrifice phases. It now is starting to gain mass adoption across the space, and a bunch of people are starting to do sacrifice phases. So it'll be interesting to see how Pulsechain and PulseX do once they're released. I think that we'll see a lot of people dumping the price right away, making quick short-term gains. But those who are hodlers, if you will be rewarded very nicely. Now, here's the thing though with like crypto, like you don't even have to hold the product for like 10 years to be considered a hodler and make insane gains in the right project, right? Because a project like Hex has done a 10,000x from its lowest to its highest in less than 2.5 years. That's crazy. Now, going over to the Hex daily stats, we see that Hex is at 17 cents. It's been staying strong right around that level. We do updates every day for crypto, and it's been staying right around high mid-teens to low mid-20 cents. And I think we're going to see a huge pump once PulseX is over, not right away, but shortly after, as we did with Pulsechain. Once the Pulsechain sacrifice ended, we saw Hex price reach all-time highs. Now, it may be a little bit different, longer of a wait, just because there are so many other sacrifice phases going on right now, and people may be sacrificing their Hex for them. Anyway, this is where we're at right now with the Hex price. The price that's really impressive is the T-share price. So right here is the T-share price. T-share rate 20,935 Hex and $3,700 to get one T-share, which is more than Ethereum now. One T-share will be worth more than a Bitcoin in the near future. And the T-share is what determines your daily payout from your stakes in Hex. So the more T-shares you have, the more Hex you will be getting every day. And you do the math, and over the course of a year, depending on your stakes, you could be making more money from passive income than you do at your job. I was fortunate enough to get into Hex early enough to be able to get full T-shares, because the language is already switching to get the population who's entering Hex into B shares rather than T shares, because T shares stands for trillion shares, B shares is the level down from T share. And so most people entering this now will be able to get B shares, and they won't be able to get short-term T shares. It's going to be harder to get short-term and long-term T shares. And long-term T shares is what you want, because you want T share preservation, right? You want to be able to have that for a long time, which is why people, in part, will do 15-year stakes. It's to preserve their T shares for 15 years. It's incredible. It's an incredible system. And I'm obviously a big fan of Hex. I have been for a long time. I recommend this crypto be looked at by everybody who's serious about investing and taking control of their finances. I think it will be a crypto asset that is here to stay for the long term, even if regulations get as bad as I think they will. I think that Hex will be okay. I think there will be ways to circumvent sort of like negative interest rates, discouraging of saving, or things like that. But obviously, the issue is going to be when you decide to liquidate your holdings. That's where you're going to have issues. But anyway, guys, that is the show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you missed it, you can just play it back. We cover a lot about the new FBI and the DOJ units that are coming out. I think I have some pretty controversial hot takes on Canada, the regulations, all that stuff. And so if you want to check that out, be sure to just, you can rewind this, check it out, listen to it for yourself. If you also liked it, please be sure to hit the like button, share, follow, all that good stuff. But I will see you guys on Sunday for MOT Today. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Much love. Peace.